Hello everyone and welcome! The transformer model was first introduced in the landmark paper Attention is All You Need. In this video, we're going to look inside the model and fully break down each of its architectural blocks. We'll examine every block in detail, not just to see what they do, but to understand the underlying logic that makes this such a powerful and iconic architecture. First, we need to define our inputs. We'll assume we're working with text data, as it's the most intuitive way to understand how the model operates. Our first task is to organize that text through text segmentation or subword tokenization. This is the process where we break the raw text into smaller pieces, called tokens. As you can see, we've added a special EOS token, which stands for end of sentence. Every token is then assigned a unique identifying number through a vocabulary mapping. Now that our inputs are prepared, we move to the word embedding block. At this stage, we have transformed raw text into numerical tokens. But there is a catch. These numbers don't carry any semantic meaning. For example, token number 10 doesn't inherently share a closer relationship with tokens 9 or 11 than it does with token 250. To inject semantic meaning, we perform a word embedding mapping. This takes each numerical token and transforms it into a vector of size L using a learned mapping. In this vector space, each word points in a direction that represents its meaning. For instance, robot and door would be positioned far apart, while words with related meanings, like sensors and signal or noise and heard, will point in similar directions. The next step in preparing our input is to add positional encoding. But why is this necessary? When we look at our word embedding matrix, we naturally see that the first row represents the first word, the second row represents the second, and so on. However, because the transformer processes all data in parallel rather than sequentially, it actually has no inherent sense of word order. For example, take the sentence, "The teacher helps the student." If we swap teacher and student, the meaning changes completely. Yet, without a sense of order, the transformer would process these two versions identically. This is where positional encoding comes into play. To grasp the concept, let's first look at how binary numbers are represented. Notice the pattern. The least significant bit flips every single step. The second bit flips every 2 steps, the third every 4, and so on. This means that for any given integer, its specific value is uniquely defined by these varying frequencies. While binary provides a unique signature for each position, it is a discrete and jumpy representation. It doesn't scale efficiently to very long sequences, and it makes it difficult for the model to learn the relative distance between words. We need something continuous. This is why we naturally move to the sine and cosine functions. Same as binary number. Each sine function is defined by a unique frequency. By using a range of frequencies across different dimensions of our vector, we create a unique, continuous, and smooth version of that binary pattern. We essentially take a snapshot of these functions across different frequencies to generate the positional vector. By taking this positional vector and adding it directly to our word embedding vector, we produce the final input for the transformer. This allows the model to not only identify where a word is located, but also to easily calculate the distance between two words regardless of the total sequence length. In the original paper, the authors suggest using the following formulas. Pos represents the index of the word in the sentence, I is the dimension index, and D model is the total size of the embedding vector. The constant 10,000 is a chosen hyperparameter that determines the maximum wavelength. This ensures that the positional signatures remain unique for sequences up to at least 10,000 tokens before the patterns begin to repeat. If we plot these formulas, for example for the first 100 positions, we get the following heat map. Each row represents a unique positional encoding vector that is added to the corresponding word embedding. Next, we take our positional encoding input and feed it into the next block of the encoder, the multi-head attention. Recall the self-attention mechanism where we multiply the input by 3 different weight matrices to generate the query, key, and value matrices. We calculate the dot product of the query and key matrices, divide by the square root of dk for scaling, and apply a softmax function. This produces the attention map. Finally, we multiply the attention map by the value matrix to get our output, which has a size of n, the number of tokens, by dk, the number of features per head. I've linked the previous video on the attention mechanism above if you want to have a deeper look at these individual components. So that was just a single attention head. In multi-head attention, we have h such heads operating in parallel. Each head has its own set of learnable weights, allowing the model to focus on different aspects of the relationship between words simultaneously. We then concatenate the outputs of all heads along the feature dimension to produce an n times HDK output. The final step is to multiply this concatenated result by another learned weight matrix, which fuses the information from all heads into a single unified representation. The next block, which appears twice in each encoder layer, is the add a norm block. Here, we simply take the output of the multi-head attention and sum it with its original input. This addition is more commonly known as a residual connection or skip connection. Its primary purpose is to combat vanishing gradients. By providing a highway for the gradient to flow through, we ensure much more stable training in deep architectures. Note that for this addition to work, the dimensions of the input and output must match exactly. Next, we apply layer normalization to this sum across the feature dimension defined with the following formula. We use layer normalization to stabilize the hidden state dynamics and ensure that the mean and variance of the activations remain consistent, which significantly speeds up convergence. The final component of the transformer encoder is the feed-forward network. This block applies the following transformation. In this block, we first project the input into a higher dimensional space using an expanding weight matrix, typically 4 times larger than the input feature dimension. Then, we add a bias term and apply a nonlinearity like ReLU. After that, we apply a second weight matrix to project the features back down to the original input size. While the attention layers help the model understand relationships between tokens, the feed-forward network allows the model to process and refine the representation of each individual token, acting as a local pattern recognition layer. That covers the internal mechanism of a single encoder block. However, as you can see in the architecture, the transformer uses a stack of n identical encoder blocks. In the original paper, the authors suggested using 6 layers. Let's do a quick recap of the entire encoding procedure. We start with our raw input tokens, transform them into word embeddings, and add the positional encoding vectors to create the initial input for the encoder. We feed this into the multi-head attention block, apply a residual skip connection, and then perform layer normalization. This result is passed into the feed-forward network, where we again apply a skip connection followed by layer normalization to produce the final output of that specific encoder layer. Since this is only the first layer, we use its output as the input for the next encoder block and repeat this process n times to reach the final encoder output. When we compare the initial input of the encoder to its final output, the dimensions remain the same, n tokens by L. However, the information within those vectors has changed fundamentally. In the initial input, a single row might simply represent the word robot in a general sense. But after passing through the encoder stack, that specific vector is no longer just a robot. It has become a contextual embedding. It now holds a mixed representation of the entire input sequence from the perspective of the robot word. The final encoder output provides a rich, high-dimensional map of the input text. It doesn't just store what each word is, but how each word functions within its specific neighborhood, capturing nuance, syntax, and long-range dependencies. Let's proceed with the second major component of the transformer, the decoder. The decoder receives 2 primary inputs: the encoder output and the target output, the sequence we are trying to generate. For example, if our task is to complete a sentence, the decoder generates the text word by word. For example, given our initial input text, the goal is to finish the rest of the story in a way that flows naturally and stays consistent with the encoder's input. Let's see how that process unfolds. Just like in the encoder, we apply subword tokenization to our targets. However, you'll notice the input is labeled output shifted right. To achieve this, we shift the entire sequence of tokens 1 position to the right and insert the BOS token, stands for beginning of sentence, at the very first position. We shift the input right and add the BOS token to ensure that when the model predicts the first actual word of the sentence, it only has the start signal to look at, preventing it from simply copying the correct answer from the current position. Next, we apply word embedding and positional encoding in the same way we did for the encoder to prepare the decoder input. The first unique block in the decoder is the masked multi-head attention. The mechanism starts exactly like the standard attention we've already seen. We multiply the input by 3 weight matrices to generate the query, key, and value matrices. But there is a critical catch. In a standard attention map, every word can see every other word in the sequence. For example, the word door could assign attention weight to a future word like open. Because the decoder produces output word by word, each token should not be able to see the future words it hasn't predicted yet. This is where the mask comes into play. We mask all future positions so that each word can only attend to past information. Mathematically, we add a mask matrix M to the QK product before the softmax. We set the future values in M to negative infinity. When the softmax is applied, these negative infinity values become 0, effectively blocking any attention to future tokens. This causal constraint is what allows the decoder to learn how to predict the next word in a sequence properly. The remaining blocks are similar to the encoder, but the multi-head attention block in the decoder is slightly different since it performs cross-attention. In this layer, the encoder outputs are used to generate the keys and values, while the decoder's previous layer generates the queries. This is one of the most powerful features of the transformer. The decoder uses its queries to ask the encoder's representation. Based on the words I've generated so far, what relevant information from the original input should I use to predict the next token? This cross-attention mechanism acts as a bridge, allowing the decoder to focus on specific parts of the input sentence that are most relevant to the word currently being generated. Just like the encoder, the decoder consists of a stack of n blocks. Each block in the stack receives the original encoder outputs to perform cross-attention, slowly refining the representation until it is ready for the final prediction. The final component of the model is the transformer head, which consists of a single linear layer followed by a softmax activation. The final output of our decoder contains k rows, one for each token, each holding the information necessary to predict the next word in the sequence. For example, the first row integrates the encoder's context with the BOS token with the goal of predicting the first word, such as the. Further down the sequence, to predict a word like tiny, the corresponding vector incorporates the encoder's context along with all previous decoder tokens from BOS up to the word preceding tiny. To perform this prediction, we project the decoder output through a learned weight matrix to produce an n times v output matrix, where v is the size of the vocabulary used. We then pass this through a softmax activation to generate a probability distribution over the entire vocabulary for every token position. You can think of the final decoder output not merely as a processed signal, but as a hyperword that the model has invented in a high-dimensional space. Because the feature dimension is so large, the model isn't restricted to the words in our vocabulary while it is thinking. Instead, it creates a unique, complex vector that simultaneously holds the essence of the encoder's context and the history of the words generated so far. Now that we understand the architecture, how does the transformer actually perform during inference? Once the model has been trained and its weights are optimized, the process follows these steps. We feed the entire input text into the encoder to be processed into contextual embeddings. These embeddings are held in memory to be used by the decoder's cross-attention layers. We provide only the BOS token to the decoder as its initial input to trigger the prediction of the first word. We take that first predicted word, append it to the previous decoder input, and feed the new sequence back into the decoder to predict the next word. We repeat this process iteratively, predicting one token at a time. With every step, the model's point of view expands. While the first prediction relies solely on the encoder's context and the BOS token, each subsequent prediction benefits from an increasingly rich context as the model considers its own previous outputs in relation to the initial input. This covers the fundamentals of the transformer architecture and the mathematical intuition behind its role as the backbone of modern AI systems. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next videos.